Hello, welcome to Art History. My name is Becca. Today we are going to be talking about Impressionism art, and we're going to learn what that even means and why it's important. And then we are going to do a project where we are going to make some art at the end of the class after I'm done talking about what Impressionism art is. So if you are new to an art history class, that's totally fine. We're just going to pick up kind of in the middle of a decade here and talk about it. And if you're joining me from one of my other art classes, that's great too. We kind of just skipped forward a little bit in time. So this is a little further forward than what we were talking about in our class last week. So if you have your art supplies ready to go at the beginning of this class, that's ideal. I've got some paper and I have markers. You can just use Crayola markers. I have this giant marker set that I really like to use. They're professional, or I don't know if they're professional. Anyone can use them, I guess. But I bought them at an art store, and that's my collection. So if you've got your markers and you've got some paper, that's really all you need. You might want a little pencil, and that'll be that. And in the background here, I've got a picture that I took this weekend when I was on a hike on our campus. This is our school's pond, and we're actually going to draw it a little bit later. So that'll be a fun project for us to do. All right, so I think we're going to go ahead and get started. One more thing, if you have any questions or you want to say something, you can put it in the Q&A and I will see your questions and comments there. Also, if you want to send me your artwork, I love to get the artwork that you guys create. Email it to events@delphian.org, events@delphian.org. And with that, we're going to get started on our lesson. So I'm going to pull up some photos here on my computer and I will talk over them, and let's go. So when I'm talking about Impressionism art, it's started in about 1890, the year 1890. And that is about 40 years after the camera was invented. And here on the left-hand side of the screen, that is from the art period called Realism, which happened right before Impressionism. And so in Realism, if you look at the painting on the left, it almost looks like a photograph. This artist, his name was Henry Becka, and this is called From Water's Edge, and it's a oil painting on canvas. And if you really look at it, you can see the individual leaves on the trees. You can see all these little tiny branches. You can see little leaves floating in the water of the pond. You can see the trees reflection in the pond. You can almost see the tree branches reflection in the pond. You can see the individual blades of grass there in the yard next to the pond. And you can see the bark on the tree. It's just very detailed. It looks almost like a photograph. Yeah, someone here said, Mackenzie says that, what? I thought that was a picture. I know, right? It's actually a painting. And in realism art, they wanted to make things look as real as possible. And they wanted to basically give you that feeling of like, this is a picture. And so we're just getting started here, and we're talking about Impressionism art and what it means. The painting on the left, that is a painting, not a photograph, and that is realism. So that is the period of art that happened before Impressionism. And so and you can just see like the water and the sunshine just glistening off that water, and it looks smooth as glass, like it looks like a photograph. And we're going to look at a few close-ups in just a minute. And the painting on the right-hand side, that is a painting by an Impressionism artist named Claude Monet. And this painting is called Impression Sunrise, and that's translated from French. He was a French painter. And he was just kind of trying to capture a moment here of the sunrise happening. And if you've ever watched a sunrise or a sunset, they kind of happen quickly. So he was trying to just capture that moment real quick and how the light glistened on the water, and there's some boats and some ships in the background. And the kind of the funny thing about Impressionism art is at the time in France, there was something called the Academy. And every year they had like an art show, art competition. And if you were an artist, like you knew you made it if you got an award at that competition. And so anybody who's anybody was trying to submit their art to the Academy to get an award. And if you got an award, that would get you tons of publicity, and you would just like make your name a household name, and everybody would know who you are. And like that was your road to stardom in the artist world. And the Academy like notoriously like didn't like Impressionism art. They thought it looked like sketches or unfinished art. They thought, that it was sloppy and rough. And this painting on the right was actually made fun of in the newspaper. And they called it just a sketch. And now it is one of the most famous paintings that Monet has ever made. So the Impressionism artists were a little bit rebellious. They were breaking the rules of art. They weren't making everything real and lifelike. And I think part of the reason that maybe they did that is, the camera had been invented, photography had been invented. And so painting something to look like something that you could take a photo of just kind of seemed pointless. And so they were looking at how they could explore art in a different direction, in a different way, and focus on something that they were interested in and wanted to do. And they wanted to focus on light. So I'm just going to go forward. So here is a close-up of From Water's Edge. And you can see in the water there, you can see the leaves floating on the water and the little ripples made by maybe a small breeze. And you can see the individual blades of grass, and you can see each leaf on the oak tree. So it's very, very detailed and very like a photograph. But the Impressionist artists were like, well, if I want a photograph, I'll just take a photograph. And so they started just focusing on light and the beauty and the impression from it. Because if you've ever taken a photograph of a sunset, it just doesn't quite capture the magic of it, like you can make a really beautiful photograph, but it might not capture that magic of being at the sunset and seeing the light dance across the water and just that moment in time. And so the Impressionist artists were looking at how to capture that moment in time and how to get that nature and that beauty. They were trying to capture nature and all its qualities and the natural light and magic. Someone's asking to go back to Water's Edge. So yeah, I'll go back to the Water's Edge. So these are the close-ups where you can really see the grass, and it really does look like a photograph. And on the right, that is Impression Sunrise. And it's definitely a painting. And another thing too is the Impressionism artists, you could see their brush strokes. You could see where their paintbrush had hit the canvas, and their paintings sometimes were bumpy and the paint was thick on it. Whereas on the left in that painting, if you were to look at the surface of that painting, it was smooth, almost like a photograph printed on canvas. Oops. All right. And so let's keep going forward. I've got some more examples that I want to show you. So that's a close-up, and you can see the little guys in the boat. It's not very detailed drawing, but it's just enough of what it looks like that you get the picture and you capture that moment. Okay, so here is another painting. Now these are both paintings, and they're both supposed to take place in the afternoon. So the painting on the left is called The Farmer's Lunch, and that is by a realism artist called Diego Vasquez, and he is a painter from Spain. And in his painting, you can see the wrinkles on the guy's forehead, and you can see that the maid there who's pouring them some drinks she almost looks a little bit shiny, like she's working hard, and she's maybe a little bit sweaty from working so hard. And you can see the guy on the right, you can see his little whiskers and his mustache, and just very real and lifelike. But also, I want you to pay attention that Vasquez painted this picture inside. It's not outside, and it's not really capturing that natural light. It almost looks like they have a spotlight pointed at them and they're in a dark room. But it's a lunchtime, so it's a little interesting because on the right, that is an Impressionist painting, and this is a painting by Pierre-Auguste Renoir, and it is called Dance at Moulin de Galette. And you can see that this is just kind of this beautiful afternoon setting. There's this dance going on outside. You can see the sunshine spotting that guy's jacket, and you can see on the dance floor how the sun is coming through in patches and spots as it filters through the trees. And the faces on these people look a little bit fuzzy, but there's just enough details that you can, get a picture for who these people are. And if you had a real life person of who you were painting, you would be able to tell who was who. So there's just enough details to capture the moment. And a lot of times when they were painting these, they would paint them in just a single afternoon. They would just go outside and set up an easel, and they would paint in the natural light and try and capture this moment. So I've got a few close-ups of this one as well. So this is a close-up of Vasquez's painting. And this is what I was talking about. This guy on the left, you can see his forehead wrinkles. And you can see that he's got a very interesting expression on his face, like he's almost like asking a question. And you can see just the little hairs on his upper lip of his mustache. And you can see all the details of his hand, like almost wonder if maybe there's even like a thumbprint. It's so detailed. And then on the right, you see the maid, a close-up of the maid, and her skin is a little bit shiny, and she's focusing in concentration, and she almost looks a little bit like she's been working hard, and she probably has, but very real and very, very lifelike compared to the close-ups of these paintings. So if you look up close at a Impressionism painting, the faces are oftentimes a little bit fuzzy, and you can see the texture of the paint, and it's a little bit bumpy, and the details are kind of fuzzy. And the interesting thing about an Impressionism painting, if you ever see one in a museum, the farther you walk away from it, the more real and lifelike it looks. And the closer you get to it, the more kind of fuzzy and spotty it looks like this. And what is happening is your eyes, what they want to do is they want to focus and make pictures clear and crisp. And so the further you get away from it, the easier it is for your eyes to kind of mush the colors together as you're seeing them and making it that clear, crisp picture. Whereas when you get up close, the colors are like far enough apart that your eyes don't mush them together, so that you can see the individual pieces of color in the painting. All right, so here's the next one that I want to talk about. So the one on the left is called October 1878. And that is by an artist named Jules Bastien Lepage, and he's a French artist too. And he has two ladies in a field, and they're picking potatoes. And that girl almost looks like a photograph, just the real life. And you can see the individual texture on the potatoes. And the back of the painting, like it gets a little bit fuzzier as it goes further back into the distance, but it's still pretty detailed, especially when you compare it to this painting on the right. And this is called Two Sisters on the Terrace, and that is by an Impressionism painting named Pierre-Auguste Renoir. And it's detailed, and there's a distance. You can kind of see a building in the upper left-hand corner. And there's trees and there's water, but it's kind of very fuzzy and very, not crisp and clear, and it's not like an exact picture of the background. And even if you look at the basket where they've got their food, where they've got different vegetables. I think they've got some onions and maybe some beets and some lettuces in their basket of food. And again, they're just a little bit fuzzy, but you do see the beauty of the moment, and you just kind of capture their expression right in that moment and the sunshine and how it's hitting them. And it's just very beautiful. And, you know, if a camera existed, you could easily go and take a picture of, you know, the girls sitting on a terrace or girls picking potatoes out of a field, but capturing exactly the mood and the moment and the natural light and the beauty of it all isn't something that you could capture with a photograph. And so that's what the Impressionist artists were kind of trying to do. I got some close-ups of this one too. I really want you to see how he drew her hands. Look at the details of her hand. You can see the dirt underneath her fingernails. You can see the redness of her knuckles from working so hard. You can almost see the veins in her hands and wrists. And you can see just very detailed kind of how he drew the potatoes in the basket. You can see the individual strands of branches that weave together to make that basket. And if you look at her face, it definitely looks very much like a photograph. I mean, she's even got a freckle on her cheek that he captured, and you can see her eyelashes and her eyebrows and individual strands of hair. And that is a very realism kind of thing to do, to try and capture in real life what someone looked like and try and make it look like a photograph. And we're going to go forward to this one. So here we're looking at the close-up of Renoir's painting, and you can see again her face is just kind of fuzzy, and her hands, you can see just enough detail to know that those are her hands and how she has them placed in her lap. And you can see the different colors that go into the different vegetables that are in their basket, but you can't see as much detail. Even the little sister there and the way she's holding onto the basket, you can see just enough of the colors and just enough of the details that you can tell what's going on and you can tell what it is, but it's not so much that it's focusing on the thing itself. It's focusing on the moment and the magic of that moment. And something that should be said about Impressionism artists is they all trained, for the most part, they trained with realism artists, and that's where they were going to school, and those were their teachers. And so they knew how to make the other kind of painting. They were choosing to make this painting. So it wasn't that they were not less skilled or didn't know how to make something look real and lifelike. They were choosing not to do it because they were kind of like, I'll just take a photograph of it. Like, what's the point? Like, I want to do something new. I want to do something different. I want to break rules. I want to break boundaries. So even though they focused on very kind of beautiful settings of flowers and people and sunshine and nature, they were totally rebels in choosing what they wanted to paint. Okay, so then this is the, oops, sorry, I went too far ahead. This is the final painting that we're going to look at today. And I blew it up big so you can kind of see it, and then I made it little on the right. So you can see the smaller and the further away it gets, the more real and lifelike the water reflections look. When it's all blown up, you can see the individual dabs of paint and how he was looking at what colors were where and trying to create that impression. And this is a painting by Claude Monet, and he actually did a lot of paintings of water lilies. And he really loved doing these in his later part of his life, and he did close-ups of them. He did faraways of them, and this little Japanese bridge is one of the more famous versions of his water lilies. And the further you get away from it, the more and more it starts to look like real life, and like the water is actually water and it's reflecting, similar to that first photo we were looking at from Water's Edge, where you could see the trees and the leaves and the reflection of the leaves floating on the water. And so the further and further you get away from an Impressionism painting, your eyes are trying to adjust and trying to make focus on what you're seeing. And so it's making it look like it's real and it's crystal clear. But as you can see, the closer you get, the more kind of splotchy and blotchy the dabs of paint are. Even though they're very intentionally placed, they're just kind of, you can see it. All right. So now we are going to, these are a couple of photographs that I took at our campus pond. And so the one on the left, that is, you can see the water was just crystal clear like glass the day that I went down there. And it was totally smooth. There wasn't wind. So I went ahead and I threw a rock, and I managed to photograph that moment where the rock was landing in the water. So you can see the splash. And then as the water droplets flew up into the air, you can see on the right that as they landed in the water, they made the water have little ripples. So today we are going to use our markers and use our paper, and we are going to draw one of these pictures, or you can kind of merge them together and make them one picture. Because another thing on the right hand side, I managed to capture this sunbeam coming down from the sky and reflecting on the pond, which I thought was a really good example of light and how it can look in real life. So this is what we are going to draw. So I'm just going to exit out of the screen share for just a minute to talk about our materials again for anybody who joined us late, and then we will come back to this photograph, these photographs, and this is what we're going to draw for our class today. So I have a piece of paper, I have my pencil, and I have a lot of markers in lots of different colors. This is my collection. I like to do drawings with markers, so I've collected a lot from the art store. So that's all you need. This is I'm using the green screen to create that same, using that photo on my green screen today. So you can see that that's what we'll be drawing. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to quickly just outline real fast on my paper where I want things to go. I'm just going to kind of put like a line of where the water meets the land in the background. And then I'm going to kind of just put where some of the key trees are. And then I'm just going to kind of outline where I see the rocks and where I see the splash and where I see the sunbeam kind of coming down. And that's all I'm going to do. And I've got really, really light pencil drawings. You probably can't even see them because I don't really want my pencil to be part of my picture, and I might even erase it as I go along. So now I'm going to go back to that photograph, and that's what we're going to work on drawing. If you have something else that you would like to try Impressionist painting, marker painting with, that's totally fine. If you've got another picture around your house, go ahead and do that. I would love to know what you are drawing, if that's what you choose to do. If not, we will draw this pond together, and we will try and capture the sunshine as it comes down from the sky. So let's go ahead and get started. I would like to start when I'm doing a painting like a picture like this. I like to start with a light color and slowly get darker as I go. That way, if I make mistakes with the lighter color, it's easier. It's easier to correct. Impressionism paintings are actually kind of funny. They made a big comeback in like the 90s, and they were used as, the posters of them were used as decoration in a lot of doctor's offices is where you'll see them a lot. Hospitals, especially older hospitals and doctor's offices. They're just kind of like a calming, soothing picture to look at. They're not really offensive. Not going to make anybody annoyed or upset with you. I think that's probably why they use them as decorations in things like a doctor's office. And it's important to remember with Impressionism painting, you're trying to just capture that moment. You're not trying to capture all the details and all the exactness of the moment. You're just trying to capture what you're seeing right now and how the light looks on it. And it's not going to be exact, and it's going to have texture and it's going to have details. But if you keep in mind that the further you get away from it, the more your eye is going to want to make it look like the real thing. All right. Is there anybody else out there drawing their own thing? Aubrey, what did you decide to draw? So I really like, if you're looking at the rocks very carefully, you can see that there's a lot of different colors of brown. They're not just brown rocks. There's kind of some reddish ones, there's some more gray ones, some even oranges and almost yellowy ones. And in the crystally clear picture, you can see a lot of different colors of rocks. And the water's kind of got this beautiful blue-green color to it. It's a particularly beautiful day down there. At the pond, about 80 degrees outside. It's just a nice little walk. I really like how you can see kind of the reflection also on the water of the trees. Not just not just water, there's actually like plants showing up in grass and little plants in the middle of the pond there too. In the background, you've got all these beautiful trees. Something I've learned about drawing pictures in nature is there's actually no such thing as black. Even though sometimes it kind of looks like there's black in the background. There's no such thing as black in nature when you're drawing and painting. You might want to use black and color with black or paint with black, but if you really want to capture something that looks natural and normal, what you can do instead is use lots of different colors and you just kind of mix them together. And get the more you mix, the more you add together, the darker colors you get, the greens and blues and That's where you start to get something that looks more lifelike. Yeah, the rocks would take you forever if you were individually drawing them, but you got to remember how Monet would paint his water lilies, how they're just kind of blobs of paint, blobs of color. And so you don't want to individually color each rock. Remember, if we were painting this in like an Impressionist time period, it would just be blobs of color. Just blobs of paint. You wouldn't have enough time because you're outside and the light's going to change, and maybe you're going to want to go get a snack. I don't know, but you're not going to stay out there for longer than what you have your light. And just take advantage of the light that you have. April says she is all done. Awesome! Would love to see what you did. Mauricio. Awesome. Ooh, Aubrey's doing a scene from Frozen. Evelyn is doing the pond, but later she's going to try her own thing. Awesome, wonderful. Yeah, it's kind of fun to just experiment. Just try different things. And I thought about choosing an Impressionism painting for us to kind of try and copy, but then I thought that it would be more fun to kind of try and make something as they would have made it. Kind of more from just looking out at nature, but I didn't have a way to take you all to the pond with me. So here we are looking at a photograph, the very thing that kind of started the Impressionism movement. Photographs, because why? I mean, there is some satisfaction to being able to paint something that looks real. It's a really cool thing to be able to do. And it's a really amazing skill to have if you can work your way up to that. But if all you want to do is capture the light and how it looks, how it is framing your painting. How those trees are reflecting in the water. I just love how that showed up on my camera. I just took this picture on a cell phone too, so it's not like any special fancy camera equipment out there with me. Mm-hmm. Anybody else done? Navy blue works well for a dark color palette. Yep. Navy blue works well for darks. You can even use dark greens if you grab dark purples. You can mix all those colors together to get a really dark palette. And something that I thought was kind of interesting with this too is a lot of times when you're drawing water, you gravitate towards using kind of your blues. This painting, the water is actually more of kind of like a green because of the reflection from the trees. It's not very blue. So with Impressionism painting, just trying to capture that moment, those lights, shadows, how they look. And if you're looking at your painting and you're thinking, this looks a little bit funny, put it far away from you and kind of look at it from far away because, the further you get away from it, the more your eye will try and make it look like a complete image. Someone's using colored pencils. That's great. All right, so we've just got a few minutes left in our class here. Does anyone have any questions before we kind of start to end off? Does anyone want to take a screenshot of these pictures if you're not done with them? Keep working. Maybe you're done. Maybe you've moved on to something else. Maybe you want to go outside and practice your impressionism drawing and find some real pictures in your backyard or out the window that you could draw. There was actually there's this really famous paintings of this chapel that Monet did, and he rented an apartment across the street from the chapel, and for a year he just drew the chapel every day, and he drew it at different times of the year, and he captured the way the shadows fell over it at different times of year, different times of day. And there's lots and lots of them. He drew hundreds and hundreds of pictures of this one building. He was just focusing and studying and practicing, capturing those different kinds of light. So you don't become a master artist without practicing a lot. And trying new things and getting out of your comfort zone and not being afraid to make something that's maybe not going to be perfect. You're not trying to make something perfect. You're trying to communicate something. You're trying to capture how it looks to you, how it makes you react or feel about it. You're trying to, if you can, communicate that through your art somehow. If you can do that, then you are a pretty good artist. Alrighty. So just gonna keep on painting. Done almost. Someone finished and will send to events@delphian.org. That's correct. That is the email you can send it to. Show us what you drew. You want to see my drawing? Okay. Let me stop the share. I was really working on kind of just capturing the colors that I saw. So you can kind of see, I don't know, it kind of washes it out, but there you go. There's my painting. I don't know if it's better if I got it closer or further away. But there you go. My markers. Send me your pictures. I would love to see them. Events@delphian.org. And also, if you would like to learn more about art, there's this really awesome encyclopedia dictionary about art and different art terms and what they mean. And you can buy it at Heron Books right now, heronbooks.com. And I'm going to show you a picture of it. So it's called Natasha's Sketchbook, and it's a glossary of art terms. And there's all different kinds of art words out there that mean special fancy things, and just by knowing what the words mean, you can learn how to do the art itself. And you can get a discount on that book right now, Delphian 30 for 30% off, and that's heronbooks.com if you would like to go there. And you can also see events@delphian.org. That is the email address you can use to send me your paintings. And thank you very much. I will be doing another art class on Friday morning. So if you enjoyed this one, please go and sign up and join me then. And until then, have a wonderful week, and we'll see you later.